The Lancet Commission's recommendations are almost exactly the same as my low-GL diet. In essence, half of what's on your plate should be vegetables and fruit. 1/4 should be protein-based foods, but a lot more from vegetarian sources, such as beans, lentils, nuts, and seeds, and also eggs. Red meat, they say, should be once a week. They recommend a small serving of chicken and or fish a day, about that which would fit into the palm of your hand. So it's not really a vegetarian diet, more a fishy chickitarian diet. Question 2. We already have almost 1 billion people malnourished in the world, and our population is growing and expected to hit 10 billion by 2050. We have to increase food production and switch away from grazing animals to growing vegetables. Almost half the world is already pretty much vegetarian. In countries like South Africa and the UK, where we eat too much meat, not enough fish and vegetable proteins, and not enough vegetables and fruit, a shift in this direction means less diabetes, less heart disease, cancer, dementia, and obesity. These are all diseases of so-called civilization. We have been digging our own graves with a knife and fork. Question 3. If the earth was an apple, cut in quarters, 3/4 is ocean, and the skin of the remaining quarter is land. Now, half that land is unfarmable and, in essence, unlivable. So we live on that remaining eighth. But 3/4 of this either has buildings on it or has too poor topsoil to farm. So we get all of our food from about 1/32nd of the Earth's surface. Now, when you plow deeply with tractors in mass agriculture, it turns over the soil, destroys the topsoil, which is needed to capture carbon. We need to get that carbon out and stored in the soil. And to do that, we need much more good quality soil, which means better farming practices. Small-scale farming is very good for capturing carbon. Grazing animals on unfarmable land makes sense, like sheep in the hills. And also, if you have a few pigs which turn over the soil and fertilize it, again, you can recreate topsoil and capture carbon. So there is some advantage of animal fertilizer on a small scale. But using good quality land in which you could grow food to graze cattle produces way less protein than you'd get, for example, if you grew beans. Question 4 about the vegan diet. Yes and no. We do need seafood, both fish and the nutrients that you find in both seafood and seaweed. We have way more farmable sea and coasts than land. The Japanese and Chinese are already doing marine agriculture on a much larger scale. In Canada, they're making omega-3 fats from algae. To be a healthy vegan, you really have to supplement omega-3, especially if you're pregnant, from seaweed, because DHA, that's the critical omega-3, literally builds the brain. And you also have to either supplement B12 or eat fortified foods which have, in essence, got B12 in them, because B12 is only from animal produce. I think the one factor not taken into account fully in the Lancet report is our need for seafood. It is this lack of seafood that is driving the big increase in mental illness. Also, our IQ has dropped 7% in the last generation. Now, seafood gives you both omega-3 and B12, as well as zinc, selenium, and iodine. The trouble is, there's not enough fish to go around, and if we were all eating fish 3 times a week, which is what I would recommend from a health point of view, we run out of fish. So protecting our oceans from pollution, overfishing, and using coasts for fish farming and seaweed marine agriculture is going to be vital to save humanity's mental health from declining. Question 5. If you eat a whole food diet, it's not hard to get enough fiber. This includes whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. There's fiber in vegetables, but much of this breaks down with cooking, so raw or very lightly cooked veg is much better. The best fibre of all is called soluble fibre, which means it absorbs water, found, for example, in oats and chia seeds. Hence, you can make porridge with oats, but not with wheat. What the fibre is doing is slow releasing the sugars in food, which stabilizes your blood sugar. That's very good for weight and diabetes. And it also helps to move food more quickly, which means less food putrefying in the colon. And that's good for reducing colon cancer risk. Now, we call these whole foods low glycemic load or low GL foods. Question 6. There are problems with a high meat, high dairy ketogenic diet, certainly as a global principle. It's neither sustainable nor, I think, the best baseline diet. Both processed and red meat are convincingly associated with increased colorectal cancer. This is partly due to carcinogens in cooked burnt meat and partly due to effectively constipation, e.g. a high meat diet tends to lead to slower elimination. If you eat no grains and beans, which a lot of these diets say you should avoid, it's very hard to get enough fibre to keep things moving through. But you can do a ketogenic diet more based on oily fish like mackerel, salmon and sardines, and fatty foods like avocados, coconut oil, high-fat nuts, and low-carb beans, eating meat rarely. This is what I advocate sometimes for reversing diseases like diabetes, but then eating a low GL diet once recovered. There's also the danger from a high meat diet of getting too much protein, which overtaxes the kidneys. We need some, but not too much protein. The healthiest high-fat keto diets have less protein overall and less from meat and dairy than, for example, the original Atkins or Banting diet. Have a look at both my websites, holforddirect.co.za, 2 D's in the middle, holforddirect.co.za, which has some very good low GL recipes, and also the GL section on patrickholford.com. Overall, there is a general convergence about what a healthy diet actually is, both for us and the planet. So in this respect, we are making progress. However, changing farming practices and eating habits across the world is a lot more challenging, but it is essential if we and the planet are going to survive.